We live in a distorted state of what we believe to be reality. But there is an afterlife, feared by most. A place of eternal torment and everlasting despair. Far beyond the grave.
Privacy, security, and democracy. To artificially amplify information.
I think the other thing that's important in this debate, and it often gets confused, is people hear about collection of electronic information, and they automatically assume that means the government's collecting an email, the government's recording my phone call and my conversation. A lot of the Snowden debate had nothing to do with that. It was simply metadata, which is the equivalent of the address on an envelope. It doesn't tell you what's inside the envelope, it tells you that someone sent me a letter, or the header of an email, the to from, the date, which is a much different thing than the actual content, and the government has very different sets of rules and requirements for obtaining the metadata versus the content. FISA collected information has been at the heart of stopping a number of would-be terrorist attacks. It has been critical to thwarting a number of attacks that would have killed many Americans. FISA surveillance information has allowed us to uncover a number of espionage issues. So many of the classic espionage folks that have been arrested over the last 30 years, that happened because of information that was derived through FISA's surveillance authorities. What I worry about is if we veer too far in the direction of constricting the use of these tools, two things can happen. The first is we miss things. We simply miss information that might have otherwise been available to us to provide this security. The second thing is that it could have a chilling effect. In other words, if you make the process so complicated, so difficult, so onerous for an intelligence agency to obtain the authority to run the surveillance, being human nature, many folks will say it's not worth the effort. Even if I could get the authority, I'm not going to fool with it because it's too darn complicated. It's too cumbersome. And so then again, we're missing critical information we might need for either preventing terrorism, for detecting espionage, or for other foreign intelligence needs that the country has. When you're conducting surveillance of a target, whether it's in the criminal context or it's in the foreign intelligence context, it's critical that all of that activity remains confidential and hidden from public view. There's two reasons for that. First, you don't want to alert the target that you're actually surveilling them, because that might cause them to change their behavior or make it more difficult for them to be surveilled. But secondly, if that individual is deemed to not be engaging in criminal activity, or assumptions about him or her were wrong, or in the foreign intelligence context, they are not actually an agent of a foreign power, or they're not doing anything that is harmful to national security of the United States, that collection and that surveillance will end, and you don't want their name to come out into the public as being a target of that surveillance when in fact they haven't done anything wrong. Since 9/11, there has not been a major terrorist event in this country on the scale and scope of what happened in 9/11. That's due in large part to the surveillance authorities that the US government enjoys and should continue to enjoy so that we can enjoy the peace of a secure state.